Good morning and welcome, one and all, as we continue our Maimer Hasidic discourse. It has some laughter to it, defeating God Almighty. So God creates a world that he longs that we, transform the darkness of the marketplace, of the public domain or the domain of many. It's not intimate. It's not um, right. It's not a closeness, a oneness. So and we bring light into a place where there's klipa, meaning we reveal godliness. This is God's greatest pleasure. Hmm. So just having my daughter with us, her husband and 4 kids, can I know how to, so a pleasure. Mhm. I'm just taking this in. It's a pleasure to see, how she's with her kids, with her husband, and, in a sense, we, made her whatever she is, and she made better of it. It's a great pleasure that a parent has. Sages say that we are jealous of everyone except for our children. Our children, we want them to outdo us. That's pretty heavy. That's amazing. So we have a pleasure, I'm just giving this as a, trying to bring this home. This idea God creates the world in a way that he creates a public domain, a domain of many, klipa, which is klipa, the shell that covers over, and therefore we don't feel a oneness. How many people feel alone? Some of you may be learning right now with me. You might feel alone. That's terrible. How do you, um, and the reason is because God creates the world in a way that we don't, it's not a private domain, which means an intimate connection with God. And we don't, that's not the way he creates the world. What gives him pleasure is that we create that private domain. We create that intimate connection by revealing God in the klipa, revealing the connection that we have to God, revealing the the truth of that darkness is really light. No, I was just using that as like, we don't create our children, but in a sense we do, because, what they go out in the world is, more what the parents give. Um, so, we create their world, and because of that, there's challenges. We don't create perfect kids, but yet they go further to bring greater, you know, perfection, if you will, greater revealing more in their lives. Hmm. It gives the parent great pleasure, the greatest pleasure when you think about it. Well, that's how God looks at us. Created our world, whereas, parents, we kind of blew it here and there, and, although we only meant good for our kids, but, you know, our ego gets in the way, our selfishness gets in the way, in raising our kids. But God didn't goof. He didn't goof. He made it this way in order that from the marketplace, public domain, place where we feel separate, alone, we reveal the light of godliness. So we're not alone, we're not separate, and God has the greatest pleasure. And the point, actually, it's an important point. Oh, David's coffee has arrived.
Type yellow strong.
Baruch atah Adonai, Chayei Shakel, Baruch.
Amen.
Chaim, Chaim Uvracha. Amazing. So this is also related to the concept of laughter. As we explained, the laughter is the greatest pleasure there is. Laughter is a type of pleasure, the result of experiencing something new and unexpected. So when we transform darkness into light, in other words, think about it. That we take our situation and we're not a victim to it, or we don't just, resign to the challenge that we're dealing with, whatever it might be. We don't resign to it. We don't give up. And you actually transform that situation that was a difficult one, a challenging one, darkness, and you change it into light. You transform it into light. So in a sense, it's in a way that's unexpected. It, because, if you go with the flow, well, darkness breeds darkness. Just like, if you think in a negative way, you think, it breeds more negativity. And all of a sudden now you're going to think positive. I had this just happen. A great smile to me. Someone, by nature and by nurture, very negative. And just, said to me, about how they're going to change that. I brought, a huge smile because it was unexpected. I was like, wow, huh, interesting. Yeah, I gotta say something that what I learn, I see in my life. And I give you that blessing that which you learn relates to your life, that you see it unfold in your life, that the teachings are not just a concept, but they're, wow, they're living. After all, this is Torah. Torah means God's wisdom, God's will, God's teachings. So as God, just as God is infinite, right? So it's possible, infinitely possible, that we can have it relate to us in everything in our lives. Okay, that's, I'm not on such a um, lofty level, but, you know, to be able to see the teachings on what either happened or will happen through your day and to see the truth of it. Wow. It's, yes, I just had that. So laughter comes because of something unexpected, right? The punchline, as it's called. When you give the punchline unexpectedly, oh, wow, that was funny, right? So that's the idea of laughter, right? Because unexpectedly we buck the tide. Most, most people just follow their nature. So if you're negative, you're going to think negative and you're going to be more negative. Ain't changing, right? But we have the power. God created the world for this purpose, that it should be dark, should be, you know, the public domain where we don't feel an intimate connection, and therefore that's why we can feel we can, think negative. So how's it possible to think negative if you feel intimately connected to God, who's only but good? It won't happen. But we're not. That's not the way God created the world. That's the way God creates souls in the higher worlds and angels, but we ain't them. We we be here, right? We're in this world. And so it gives, this is the idea that when we make this transformation, it gives God tremendous pleasure. Now, why are we speaking about God's tremendous pleasure rather than just about our transformation? You know why? Because ultimately, this, you know, this is, I think, unique in Hasidic teachings in particular, but in Jewish teachings in general, is that it's not about me. It's not about my um, advancement. Not to say that we are not to advance and not to grow. Absolutely. It's not about my self-fulfillment. It's about fulfilling what I was created for and lishma, doing it for God's sake. That's pretty evolved, right? Uh, Pretty evolved. Now, I don't know if we are there, but we should be at least mindful of that. So it's about God's pleasure, not about my pleasure. Even though we should have pleasure. In other words, I had an apple today. An apple a day keeps. Yeah. So there's a sweetness in an apple. There's a sweetness in a melody. There's a sweetness in doing an act of goodness. There's a sweetness in a act that's divine. They're all sweet. Of course, as we evolve, the child just wants the sweetness of a candy, not looking for sweetness of goodness. Become a little more mature, you appreciate the sweetness of goodness. Of course, it's your sweetness that you're appreciating, right? It's sweet for you. And then we evolved even that, oh, learning Chassidus is sweet. And it's sweetness for us. But where we're taking this is, and yes, we should come to that. No question that we should sense the sweetness of learning in the morning as we're doing together here. That's greater than the sweetness of the apple. And that's I strive for that and want that much more so. At the same time, the mimer is telling us that it's not about our pleasure. It's about the pleasure that we're giving to God. That I am transforming me. That I am transforming what God created for me. He created a marketplace, a public domain, klipa. Everything is klipa in our world, except for our learning of Torah right now. That's holiness, but and therefore, direct, yeah, revelation of God, godliness at least, right? And when you pray, you give charity, the mitzvahs that we do, absolutely. But God creates the world around me and my inner world with, being pulled in different directions. I desire the sweetness of the apple, the sweetness of the new hit song, the sweetness of doing an act of kindness. Whoa, going in all directions, pulled in many directions. Well, that's what it means, the domain of many. We're pulled in many directions. But when you do it for the sake of God's sweetness, then you're pulled in one direction. Now, of course, that's going to, and therefore there'll be a sense of connection, alignment with the divine. And, but the importance over here is the, and, and actually the empowerment in this idea is tremendous. I can make God laugh. I could give pleasure to God. Like, what? It almost sounds like an absurdity. Like, God's infinite. I'm a speck of, and therefore for most, religions and ideas is like, I'm insignificant. The only thing is that yes, I have to come on to God and ultimately that I can, you know, gain his grace, gain his entry into the next world. And again, I've mentioned this more than once. That's how most other faiths, religions, and even in Jewish teachings, you might make the mistake in thinking that that's the goal. Because after all, God's infinite, and what can I give to him? Yes, I have to come on to him. But ultimately, he's there so I could have something in my life which would be pleasurable, which would be either the next world, right? Or whatever it is in this world. Here comes Chassidus and says, ah, you're giving pleasure to God through the mitzvah that you're doing. That's extremely empowering, extremely powerful, and also transformative when you think about it. That's really like breaking out from the norm of the way you would think and you know look at your life. And but at the same time, it's like a double-edged sword over here. Why? Because it's great, very empowering, but the empowerment is it's not about me. What a paradox. What a paradox. Wow. It's just actually blows my mind right now thinking about it. That it's the greatest empowerment that you could give pleasure to God, and yet the whole point of it is not about me. It's about giving that pleasure, right? But that's all about me that I could do that. I could do that to God. I could, my mitzvah that I just take a coin and put it into the charity box, which I will, God willing, do in a few moments before prayers. And then I could stand before God and pray. Just that notion that I could give him that divine pleasure, that I could give that. And at the same time, it's not, oh wow, look how great I am and how important I am, or well, I mean, we all have that capability. So it's not like I'm greater, but like how valuable I am. Yes, we need to know that, but it's about not about me having the pleasure, but about giving that pleasure. All right, folks. Wow. I don't know about you. Well, I have something to daven with. All right. God bless you. We'll see you by Chumash and Rashi and